This is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, and what we're looking at today is that pepper bed that you guys saw me install, and also showed you guys how to enrich the soil before I plant for the season. Now I planted all the peppers, and then in between I planted radishes, to actually do companion planting and also to grow more food in less space. As you guys can see, it's worked wonderfully. So wonderfully, in fact, that I haven't been able to keep up on my radish harvests and eating them because they've been growing so fast and because I've been traveling a little bit too much lately. Anyways, as you guys can see, the peppers, some of them are getting buried. Some of the peppers, are nice and tall, and the radishes are still short, but some of the radishes are overtaking the peppers. So what I'm going to do in this episode is show you guys what I do when I got extra radishes like today. So first, let's go ahead and harvest a few radishes, show you guys the kinds I grew, what kind did best, and actually what I'm going to do with them. Alright, so as you guys can see, I got some peppers here, kind of hidden amongst my radishes. We're going to go ahead and harvest them. And, if your radishes are flowering, that means you already should have harvested them. So we'll start pulling these guys up that are flowering first. Also, they're the tallest. And let's see, I think there's maybe 2 in one hole, so we're going to pull this largest one up first. Alright. So here it is, the tags that I made. To tag these, the ink wore off, so I don't know what kind this is. But I do know the kind next door. Let's see here, which are these guys. These guys are the cherry bells. No, maybe this is some kind of like daikon thing. Here's another cherry bell. Look at these guys. These guys are huge for radishes. And look at this. I kind of like these guys stayed relatively short, whereas these other guys stayed really tall. So I think, I grew like 5 or 6 kinds. Definitely the best kind was the cherry bells overall. Sometimes I planted like 3 per hole and they did all right. So we're going to go ahead and harvest more radishes. I'm going to go ahead and clean them up, and I'll come back and show you guys how I'm going to process these so I could save them for the whole summer. So now I'm going to go ahead and share with you guys how I pickle my radishes. I love fermenting foods. What I do is called lactic acid fermentation. So here's a batch actually I made probably in the winter time with my bok choy or Apollo Napa cabbage with some carrots and other things. This is like a sauerkraut basically, or maybe this is like a kimchi. I mean, to me, they're all the same. They're basically lactic acid fermented vegetables. Now, I do this instead of this traditional canning, because I am using the canning jars, because when you can things, you have to actually heat it. And when you heat the foods, you lose 100% of the enzymes, and many other nutrients, especially the delicate phytochemicals, can be lost. That being said, it's always better to even can your food than eat the packaged, processed, canned food from the store. But instead of canning your own food at home, I would encourage you guys to lactic acid ferment them, because actually you're going to have higher levels of nutrition, and it's going to create even compounds that are even not actually even in the food. So for example, you're multiplying the beneficial probiotics or the beneficial bacteria, specifically the lactobacillus, which is a beneficial bacteria that is actually present in nature but also lives in our gut, and it actually helps us digest our food. And the microbiome in our gut, which there's a lot of new books and research about, is actually part of our immune system. So that's why I do it this way instead of any other way. So let's see. So the only things you're going to need to do this, super simple, super easy. You're going to need 1 quart of filtered water. We got a canning jar. This is one of those ones with that little lid with the rubber ring that latches down, so it's like airtight, watertight seal. You're going to need the appropriate amount of salt, which I'll go over in a second, and then you're going to need your vegetables. In this case, we have radishes. In this mixture here, I did basically carrots and bok choy and cabbage. You could also do any of the cruciferous vegetables. They work very well. I've done okra in the past. I've done hot peppers in the past. I mean, many things can be pickled. Of course, your standard cucumbers could also be pickled as well. I really recommend a book by Sandor Katz. It's called The Art of Fermentation. It's one of the books that I read and have learned about this, but I've been doing a fermentation for many years now. So in any case, to do this, first step is you want to go ahead and wash all your radishes. So I washed them and cut off any kind of like spots that are kind of like black and may have been like damaged by insects or something else was going on. Then the next step is you're just going to go ahead and simply cut them up into little slices. So I got lots of cutting to do here. Now when you're cutting them, I like to cut them into smaller pieces. This creates more surface area for the bacteria to work. And once you cut them, then you're going to want to try to lay them to the best of your ability. A single file on the bottom, so this way you kind of get more. So like on the bottom of this jar, I'm kind of like putting maybe 4 up, and then I'm going to repeat the pattern maybe with some of the smaller ones so that I could like fit as many as possible in there. Alright, so as you guys can see, I've been busy at work and my jar is almost all full of these sliced up radishes. I think I have maybe like 1 or 2 more to do. I think for the top I'm going to try to get maybe some of the larger radishes to cut up. Now, another one of my favorite ways to eat radishes is actually with guacamole. So I'll make some guacamole and I'll just take these radishes and I'll just slice them into little chips like I'm doing now. Now the size of my slices, they're probably between 1/8 and 1/4 inch. It's not exact. You could use a mandolin, but I'm just using a ceramic knife. I really like the ceramic knives because they tend to be sharper than the steel knives, and they don't need cutting. Plus, you're not, you know, touching your food with stainless steel, which may have stainless steel ion transfer, kind of like we know not to drink out of aluminum cans because you get Alzheimer's. Well, even stainless steel, as hard as it is, could transfer some ions. So, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and layer these guys up a little bit more. And another thing you could do with your radishes is I spiralize them. So you could spiralize them into noodles with a spiralizing tool. That's pretty cool. And then what I do is I take those noodles and then I soak them in water, maybe like in cold water overnight, and then drain the water the next day, and then you lose a lot of the radish bite if you don't like the radish bite. I actually don't mind the radish bite myself. Now radishes are in the cruciferous family of plants, so much like broccoli, they also have anti-cancer compounds within them. So it's very important to you know, eat them raw, because if you cook them, you're going to lose the anti-cancer compounds unless you process them properly. Alright, we're almost to the top, so I really don't want to put too many more. I think we'll maybe do this last radish, and then we're going to move on to the next step. I think that's pretty good. Maybe a couple more here. Alright, I think that's pretty good there. Let's get those shoved in there. Stay down! Alright. Maybe I'll eat that one. Nothing better than a homegrown radish. This reminds me when I'd go to my dad would take us to my grandparents' house. We'd walk down the street to Mr. Blakely's, and we'd pick strawberries and radishes right out the field, right out the ground, grown organically. Pick them and eat them. Now radishes, especially if you guys are beginner gardeners, one of the easiest things to grow. Mainly because they're done so quickly. You know, in as short as 15 to 25 days, you could have radishes to eat. Now I am eating the radish roots, but the greens are also edible. They have a strong flavor, but you could eat them just as you would, you know, eat beet greens, for example, or even carrot greens. They're all edible. It's just kind of strong, so people don't generally eat them. Now, if I was in a famine situation and that was the only food available, I'd eat them, but I'd rather eat the radishes and eat my kale greens instead. Alright, so once we got that, we're going to go ahead and take our quart of water here, and we're going to add in the salt. It's very important that you add the appropriate amount of salt. So I'm in 1 quart of water, that's a good standard amount. I'm putting 25 grams of salt. This will give us approximately a 2.5 saltwater brine solution. And I'm using the Seasons 90 sea salt. And that's the salt I like to use. That's the same salt such as the C90 that you could actually, and I have put on my garden. I like this salt because it has a lower sodium content than other salts, and so that means it has higher levels of other trace minerals. We're going to make sure we fully stir this in to the mixture here to get all the salt dissolved. And then we're going to go ahead and pour this in the radishes. Alright, so it looks like I got about, I don't know, at least 98% of the salt crystals dissolved. So that's pretty good. So what we're going to do next is actually just pour this baby in there. Now you don't want to go exactly to the top, because what's going to happen is the radishes are going to like rise up. So what I got is I got a fermentation weight here. This is made out of ceramic. You could also use like a clean piece of it'd be like glass to fit in there. I've used also like small mason jars, like something glass. I wouldn't put any kind of metal in there. This is ceramic. It's from Fermenting, fermentn.com. I've also used like things like carrots and other radishes. Like I could take this radish, slice it in half, and if it was long enough, like wedge it in between to keep everything under the level. But we have this weight, so we're just going to go ahead and put the weight on to keep it weighted down. We're going to go ahead and press that in there, and then we're going to go ahead and add some more water. And so like now we got all the radishes submerged. Very important. Then the only thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and, oh, forgot one step. We're going to take my old sauerkraut stuff here, and then I'm just going to go ahead and dribble in a little bit of the liquid in there. Now what this is going to do, this is an optional step really. You don't really need to do this for it to work properly, but I like to do this to get a good ferment, because you're basically inoculating your current mixture with some lactic acid bacteria, the lactobacillus, to get the fermentation process started. You know, if you don't already make your own fermented foods, you could buy a raw fermented food, you know, from the store, like a raw sauerkraut. Now, if you're buying a raw sauerkraut from the store, don't get the one in a bottle that's sitting on a shelf, or in a jar sitting on a shelf. You got to get one that's in the refrigerated section, and it has to say raw. If it doesn't say raw and it's just in a glass jar, and especially if it makes that little click noise when you unpop it, that means it's been heat processed. It's not going to have the lactic acid bacteria. Many times you're going to have to go to a health food store to find one of these raw products to add in a little bit of the starter culture. And once you start fermenting, like I got about 8 of these jars hanging out with different mixtures, you know, I always got some starter culture to use. I really like to do that, but as I said, it's not necessary. Oops, I think I filled this up a little bit too much, so we'll pour out a little bit and crank this down. So the reason why I like using these old style canning jars with the little rubber ring is because this is basically an easy automatic airlock system without using one of those like airlock contraptions or picklets or whatever you want to call it that you got to keep refilling. Because trust me, I got so many things to do, I often forget to refill those things and it doesn't work. Or if you're using a big ceramic crock, you got to keep refilling the little you know, gully with water, or else you're going to defeat the purpose. But these are like those it's like a no-brainer. You fill it up, and basically inside you're creating an anaerobic conditions for the lactic acid bacteria. And what's going to happen is because you don't want the oxygen in there, they're going to basically make the CO2. It's going to bubble up, and then as it bubbles up, there's going to be pressure in here, and the pressure is not enough to break the glass. But what will happen is when there's a certain amount of pressure and it builds up so much, it'll actually cause the gasket to move out of place and let some of the gas out of the gasket. At the same time, some water may escape. So that's why you should put this in like on a countertop, or you know, in a cool, dark, dry place, like out of direct sun, you know, and not too hot. You know, you don't want to put this in direct sun. If you put it in like in a windowsill, the fermentation is going to happen faster. I like to have a nice controlled ferment. I don't know, 70 to 80 degrees. That's the temperatures in the house right now. And leave it out about 2 weeks. After about 2 weeks, open it up, and you'll probably let some gas out when it opens up. And then you could eat it, and you'll taste that like classic fermented pickled flavor in the radishes. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you see any kind of white stuff growing at the top, which there shouldn't be because this is an airlock, it's not really letting stuff in. And as long as you cut off all the bad, rotten, molded parts off, you know, any damaged parts of the radishes, you shouldn't have any problems, especially because we inoculated it. But if you see anything white stuff on the top, just kind of like skim that stuff off, throw a couple layers of radishes off on the top, but the stuff submerged on the bottom, that stuff's still alright. And then once you ferment it out of the fridge for like about 2 weeks, then what you're going to do is taste it. If it tastes fermented to your liking, then you're gonna put it in the fridge, and then it's gonna save 6 months, a year, or even longer. I'm gonna start working on this one probably in the next couple of days, because I still got my previous batch that I'm working on, and then I got like 5 more batches, you know, of my winter vegetables still to eat. And that's how I like to preserve my food. You know, the fermented foods are the best foods for you. And now you guys learned how simply you could preserve your radishes when you have an abundance like I do. I think the rest of these radishes, which I have a lot more, actually maybe I'll do another jar full later. I'm also going to probably eat a lot for dinner myself tonight. Yeah, eat some radishes. They're good foods, and they're super easy to grow. If you guys enjoy this food demo presentation, hey, please give me a thumbs up. I'll share with you guys more food prep demos. Besides growing food, I also have been preparing my own food for the last 20 years from scratch, based out of fruits and vegetables. Now I just happen to grow them too, which they're even higher quality than the stuff I would make before I started growing, which is over 10 years ago. And yeah, I just have fun playing in the kitchen, so I kind of like grow, prepare, make, eat, and I do it all. Anyways, yeah, if you enjoyed this, thumbs up. I'll do more presentations on how I use my food, because I think that's a big part that I really haven't been covering for you guys. I mean, as much as I've been showing you guys how to grow it, I need to show you guys how to eat it so you guys can get more of this stuff into you instead of the crap stuff at the grocery store. So anyways, also be sure to check my past episodes. I have over 1,100 episodes now showing you guys how to grow your food. And there's a bunch actually already videos on how I prepare my food, which I do have a playlist on the GrowingYourGreens.com homepage. And also be sure to click the subscribe button right down below so you don't miss any of my future and upcoming episodes that are coming out about every 3 to 4 days, because you never know where I'm going to show up or what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel. So once again, my name is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep on growing. All right, this is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. We have another exciting episode for you, and on this cold and cloudy, a little bit, maybe even drizzly, rainy day, I got a awesome, exciting episode for you guys.